the cut and fill calculations for the amount of earth moved and all of that, the number of labor hours that had to be organized to carry this out, the whole thing, right? Needless to say, those numbers are huge, right? Mm-hmm. But here was the bottom line. He said that between these layers, there was no evidence at all of any hiatus between the layers. In other words, it was fresh, pristine earth, and then immediately another layer is on that. And based upon the traces of datable material that they did find, there appeared to be no discernible difference in the ages of organic material found from the bottom of the mound as to the top of the mound.
So it was a continuous effort to build this thing. It was just ongoing. There was no break in time.
Exactly.
There wasn't a 100-year break. They just kept going until they were done, which tells you that they knew where they were going. They knew what they wanted to build. They probably understood exactly how high it needed to be, what the dimensions would be,
yeah,
what the footprint looked like. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes. And here's the exclamation point on the whole thing. The maximum amount of time to create this thing was 1 season, and it may have been as little as 1 month.
Stop it.
And I'd say, wait a second.
That mound?
1 month, maybe as short of a span of time as 1 month. Okay. So how the hell many people?
Exactly. That's the question. How many people would they have needed to have to build that? What's the number you got?
Oh, it was huge. Tens of thousands of people.
Yeah, it would have
to.
So
where 40, the dating, 4,700 years ago, I think is within a few centuries of where it's dated. But given our models of what was going on culturally, we've got assumptions about, hunter-gatherers and subsistence farmers there, perhaps farming on the Mississippi River plain there. But where are you going to get the level of organization that you could undertake a project on this scale, like within over one summer? You would have to, how much I know as a builder how much organization it takes just going up to a relatively modest job. If you don't just go out there the first day and break ground, there's a lot of preparation, planning and right. Where's the materials going to come from? What people, what skill sets, in what order, on what dates? How do we, so that's what boggles my mind, is because what it's almost suggesting is, we went through the numbers with Mark, and I have them. I have these numbers, and we can get that. And this will probably be interesting to bring up in the April event.
Yes.
But so the bottom line is this: the number of people employed had to be huge, tens of thousands of people. The area that is, with assumptions based upon population density, the area would have been huge, in the area of like several 100,000 square miles of people who would have had to have been drafted and brought to that site. Now, of course, everything that goes along with it, for the food and the clothing and the shelter, they all have to be supported while they're nonstop, the whole thing.
This structure. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, but doesn't that in itself, Randall, the fact that this thing is such a megalithic, it's not lithic, it's mega earth structure, but doesn't that tell you something about its purpose, about the fact that it was important, that it was probably, and I don't think this is a stretch at all to say it was sacred. What is it that's going to motivate that many people? How are they going to get them to come there? I could just imagine a lot of things, but what we're talking about, I think, based on everything that you've said, is that this was maybe a once in a lifetime event for these people that we're going back and calling hunter-gatherers. I think maybe we need to rethink that title, and that these people probably had more sophisticated culture than we're giving them credit for.
Well, it seems to me that's an inevitable conclusion.
Yes. Agreed.
But the questions that then raises, that's where, you start trying to come up with models. And it just it's like you've got this a model that's built up of nothing but outliers.
Yeah.
It's mind baffling. And you got to wonder, is this really the result of just manual labor? People carrying wicker baskets full of earth? And, I don't know.
Well, you know what it does is it's going to make a lot of the academics that we deal with, it's going to make their heads explode because they have to completely rethink everything that they thought that they knew. And I don't know about you. Well, I do know about you, Randall. You're the type of guy that asks a lot of questions and you're open to new ideas and you think about these possibilities that, I mean, this is something that I'm learning just tonight, but I find it exciting. And it's a question that I would love to know more about, to try to get the answers to. But then I run into these people that think they have it already figured out. The minute you throw something like this at them, they freak out. And instead of looking at it as an opportunity to learn and maybe find out something exciting and interesting, they just want to tap the brakes. And I just don't understand that mentality. But this is really exciting, man. I haven't heard any of this. I think it's great. What do you think, Hayley?
No, it's wonderful to get to finally hear some of this, because I feel like Poverty Point is one of the sites in the US that you never hear about. You hear a lot about Serpent Mound. You hear a lot about some of these other mound builder sites, Cahokia, for example. Yeah, exactly. But you don't hear a lot about these other sites, and especially these sites that are more controversial in nature, because there's a lot of elements to the engineering that modern day scientists and archaeologists have a hard time coming to terms with. And specifically, one of my own passions is archaeoastronomy. So Poverty Point, that is something that I'm very passionate about and wanting to understand there. And specifically, it stresses me out a little bit, to the point that I see these modern day archaeologists that get so strung out on these astronomical alignments. Why is it that is such an uncomfortable conversation and topic to modern day archaeologists? Why is that so threatening?
My answer would simply be that it was because you could find, if you had one social group somewhere that was immersed into archaeoastronomy and was setting up their culture, their infrastructure around this particular framework of thinking about this, the connection between Earth and cosmos, well, that's one thing. The problem is that you find it everywhere in the ancient world. You've got, the assumption is, the conventional model is, you've got these independent, social groups forming around the world throughout the Holocene, and when we're talking Poverty Point, we're basically mid Holocene. And, when you look at it within the geological framework, there are certain assumptions about what has gone on in the Holocene, and certainly the Holocene encompasses the entirety of what we think of history. And then once we're out of the Pleistocene and back into out of the Holocene into the Pleistocene, we're deep into the prehistory. We're back into the Paleolithic, and now there are certain assumptions about life on Earth during the Paleolithic, and of course those are all now beginning to unravel. And I think the problem is that if you had people in South America, North America, Europe, Egypt, Greece, China, the list goes on, all practicing this same phenomena of laying out the infrastructure of their societies according to the patterns and motions of the heavens, it raises these huge questions. Like, because obviously, if you need to know the seasons and you want to chart out the times for planting and sowing and so on, you basically can do that with a flattened out area and a stick in the ground. And you can create a very nice, simple calendar right on the ground that's going to give you all the information you need to know to conduct farming. You don't need elaborate, huge constructions, of stone or wood or soil to accomplish that. And yet, all over the world, we got these ancient cultures that are engaged. Now, of course, when you look at Chichen Itza and the archaeoastronomy there, and you look at the step pyramids and the temples, they're very distinct from Native American earth mounds until you look a little further and you realize, okay, Central America, you have a lot of truncated pyramids built of limestone because that was primarily their building material. Now in North America, you have truncated pyramids and all the evidence that there was once timber temples built on top of those truncated pyramids. So in a way, the morphology of the truncated pyramidal earth mound in the Ohio River Valley with a wooden temple on it is very reflective of the, what you would have seen in Central America. Plus, now on the other hand, you could go, well, you've got hinges, which is a ring, right? A hinge is a ring. Stonehenge, Avebury, Newark up in Ohio, which is an amazing place. You've been there, right, Scott? Newark? If you haven't, I'm dragging your ass there.
No, the answer is absolutely. We filmed an episode there, and the
Yeah,
Ohio
of course you had.
Are absolutely incredible.
It is. So just to make my point is that the parallels, even though when you look at a temple complex from Egypt with an archaeoastronomy orientation to it, and then you look at earth mounds, obviously you got two different phenomena there. Yet the way I guess I think of it is that when you look beyond just the outer three-dimensional form of these things, they're all being based upon virtually identical templates of geometry, of astronomy, of orientation, of geodesy, all of those things. There is a common working system to all of these things, no matter where we see them around the planet. So right there, okay, how do you square that with our, conventional models of prehistory? I mean, because what we're seeing there is essentially, as long as we don't just rule it out, de facto rule it out, it seems to imply some kind of a universal system.
Yes, I totally agree with that.